Hello, my friend. The world of magic, filled with legends and ancient tales, is opening its gates once again. Tonight, in the Gryffindor dormitory by the crackling fireplace, I will share another story with my friends. Join us, for the magic is about to come alive.
The lanterns of Diagon Alley glowed dimly against the misty night. Shops had shuttered, their windows casting long bars of gold onto the cobbled street, and the only sound was the whisper of wind curling between door frames and chimney pots. Somewhere, an owl hooted, and somewhere else a door creaked where it should not have. Inside Ollivander's wand shop, the air was still, too still. Rows upon rows of slender boxes lined the shelves from floor to ceiling, each one resting quietly as though asleep. The faint scent of cedar, polish, and ancient magic lingered in the air. Then a shadow slipped through the half-open door. It moved with care, cloaked and silent. The shadow's hand, pale beneath the folds of a dark sleeve, reached out and brushed the counter. A flicker of sparks rose, faint, bluish, as though the very wood protested being touched by a stranger, but the intruder did not flinch. They moved with purpose, scanning the shelves until stopping before the back wall, where dust lay thicker, and the wands seemed older than the shop itself. There the thief pressed a finger to a crack between two wooden panels. The boards trembled, parted soundlessly, and a narrow compartment opened, revealing a single wand. No box, no label, only a slender stick of dark wood, with faint silver veins running through it like moonlight, trapped in bark. The thief reached for it. The moment their hand closed around the wand, a sharp hiss filled the air. The shelves shuddered, dust flew like startled birds. The lanterns flickered, and a burst of cold magic swept through the room, strong enough to rattle the window panes. Then silence again. The shadow turned and slipped back into the alley, unnoticed. But the wand's magic did not settle. It pulsed once like a heartbeat, and then all the other wands seemed to stir in their sleep. When Garrick Ollivander returned at dawn, the air felt wrong. He paused in the doorway, his old eyes The shop was tidy, as always, but not right. He could sense it, the faint echo of power that didn't belong. Slowly, he raised his wand and whispered a revealing charm. Lines of blue light shimmered across the counter and shelves, forming the ghostly outline of a single footprint. Someone had been here, someone who knew how to enter unseen. "Ah," he murmured softly, his voice trembling not with age but dread. "So it has begun." By midday, Harry Potter stood at the threshold of the shop. His dark hair was a little shorter now, and his Auror's robes carried the faint scent of smoke and parchment. But his eyes, those sharp, steady green eyes, were unchanged. "Ollivander," he said quietly, closing the door behind him. "You said it was a break-in, but nothing seems stolen." The old wand maker shook his head, his silver hair shining faintly in the morning light. "Nothing that you can see, Mr. Potter. But something very dear and very dangerous is gone." Harry frowned. "What was taken?" Ollivander hesitated. Then he reached for the wall behind the counter and tapped the hidden panel. It opened, revealing the empty space. "A wand," he said at last. "One I never sold. One I hope never to see again." Harry stepped closer. "What kind of wand?" "Phoenix ash wood," Ollivander said quietly, "and a core of thestral tail hair. A wand that chooses no master, for it was forged without obedience in its heart. It was An experiment from long ago. My first. Harry's eyes darkened. Do you think whoever took it knew what it was? I fear they do, the old man whispered, or worse, that the wand knew them. Outside, Diagon Alley carried on as usual. Children laughed near Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor, and shoppers bustled past Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, where enchanted fireworks crackled cheerfully over the roof. Yet above the noise, a faint hum of magic seemed to thrum beneath the cobblestones, unnoticed by all but by evening, the news of the break-in had spread quietly among the Aurors. Hermione Granger, now deputy head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, met Harry in the ministry's atrium. Ollivander wouldn't have called unless it was serious, she said, keeping her voice low. He's not one to panic. I know, Harry replied, rubbing his temples, but he said the wand was dangerous. Something about the magic being unstable. Hermione frowned thoughtfully. Phoenix ash and thestral hair. That's an odd combination, life and death in the same breath. No wonder it's unstable. They exchanged a look, the same unspoken understanding that had passed between them since their school days. Trouble was coming, and somewhere beneath Diagon Alley, in the tunnels the time had long forgotten, a pulse of light flickered once more. Soft, blue, and alive. It drifted along the stone walls like a spark searching for air, until it found a door sealed by centuries of dust. Beyond that door lay carvings, ancient sigils of wand makers past, etched into the stone with forgotten magic. The air smelled of oak and flame. The blue light touched the carvings, and they answered. The door began to open, and with it something very old, awakened beneath the streets of London. Morning rose pale and uncertain over Diagon Alley, its cobblestones still glistening from a night rain. Mist curled through the narrow lanes like a living thing, brushing past lamp posts and curling beneath shop signs. Though the alley had seen its share of dark days, there was something different in the air now. A quiet shiver, as if the very stones were waiting for a sound that had not yet come. Harry stood outside Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, watching as a mechanical dragon in the window released a puff of harmless green smoke. The scent of toffee and sulfur drifted through the air. George Weasley emerged from the doorway, a lopsided grin on his face, a streak of gold dust. "Morning, Auror Potter," he said with mock formality. "If you're here about the dancing cauldrons, I swear I filed the permits." Harry smiled faintly. "Not this time. I need your help keeping an eye on Ollivanders. There was a break-in last night." George's grin vanished. "A break-in? That's rare. What did they take?" "A wand," Harry replied. "A special one." George looked toward the wand shop across the street, his brow furrowing. Blimey. If someone's bold enough to steal from Ollivander, they're either desperate or daft. Or both. "Neither," Harry said grimly. "I think they knew exactly what they wanted." Inside the shop, Ollivander sat in a high-backed chair, a steaming cup of tea untouched on the counter. His pale eyes moved slowly across the shelves as if counting ghosts. Hermione was already there, standing by the workbench where dozens of wand pieces, bits of wood, slivers of core, coils of silver wire, lay in precise disarray. "I found something," she said as Harry entered. "A trace spell, faint but still active. It's old magic, pre-ministry regulation, probably wandmaker's craft." Ollivander looked up sharply. "You are correct, Miss Granger. A charm from the old guilds. Every wand I've ever made carries a trace of its birth. But this one I buried deep beneath the records. I did not want it found." "Then whoever took it must have known where to look," Hermione said. The old man nodded slowly. "Yes, which means they were once here." Harry's gaze sharpened. "An apprentice?" Ollivander's silence was answer enough. He rose, his movements slow and deliberate, and crossed to the far wall where an old ledger sat upon a shelf. Its cover was cracked and bound with a leather strap. He opened it carefully, revealing page after page of names, dates, and notes, written in a neat, spidery hand. Near the bottom of one page, a name had been struck through so violently the parchment had torn. Calder. He was my apprentice many years ago. Gifted, ambitious, and reckless. I dismissed him when he began experimenting with cores that should never have been joined. Hermione frowned. Flint. Any relation to Marcus Flint? His nephew, Ollivander said with a sigh. But young Calder was different. He had talent. Too much, perhaps. He wanted to create a wand that could summon the power of its own accord. A wand that served no wizard, but drew magic directly from the source. Harry exchanged a glance with Hermione. You mean... Yes, Ollivander said gravely. He sought the heart of magic. A hush fell over the room. Even the dust in the air seemed to still. Is that just a legend? George asked softly from the doorway. Fred and I used to joke about it. The idea that all magic flows from one place beneath the world. Not a joke, Ollivander murmured. A truth buried too deep for most to find. Every wand maker knows fragments of the tale. That below London's oldest foundations lie vaults of raw, unshaped power, the breath of magic itself. It is said that the first wizards who tamed this force forged the earliest wands there, but the place was sealed long ago for good reason. Hermione crossed her arms. If Flint's trying to find it, and that wand can channel power without a master, then he may open something he cannot control. Harry finished. Before Ollivander could speak again, a sudden rumble shook the floor beneath them. Boxes rattled, dust fell from the ceiling. What in Merlin's name? George started, but Ollivander's eyes widened in horror. The magic is waking, he whispered. He's found the way in. Harry drew his wand and ran for the door, Hermione at his side. The cobblestones outside were trembling faintly, like something far beneath was moving. From the direction of Nocturne Alley came a strange light, not fire nor spell work, but a dull, throbbing glow. They hurried toward it, the crowd parting around them in confusion. Shops closed their shutters. Cats hissed and fled into alleys. As they reached the end of the street, Harry stopped short. The ground had split open before Borgin and Burke's, revealing a narrow stair descending into darkness. The glow came from below, blue and cold. He's down there, Harry said. Hermione nodded grimly. Then so are we. George looked ready to protest, but Harry turned to him sharply. Tell Ollivander to stay in his shop and lock it. If the magic spreads, I'll make sure no one comes near, George said firmly. But Harry, be careful. Whatever's under there, it's not meant for us. Harry gave a curt nod, then followed Hermione down the stairs. The air grew colder with every step. The light thickened, clinging to the stone walls like mist. The sound of dripping water echoed faintly through the passage. Symbols were carved along the walls. Old wandmakers' sigils glowing faintly, as if the stone itself remembered how to breathe magic. When they reached the bottom, the passage opened into a vast, vaulted chamber. It looked like no human hand had shaped it. The walls curved like the inside of a great shell, smooth and seamless, and at its center stood a wide pedestal of marble. Upon it, blue flames danced in a ring, and at the center of the ring stood Calder Flint. He was young, perhaps 30, with hair black as soot and eyes burning with feverish light. In his hand, the stolen wand pulsed like a living thing. "I knew you'd come, Potter," Flint said, his voice echoing against the stone. "You always do, don't you? The Ministry's golden boy chasing shadows." "Put it down, Calder," Harry said evenly. "You don't understand what you're holding." Flint laughed, and the sound was wrong, too bright, too sharp. "I understand perfectly. I've found the source, the river beneath all rivers of magic. And with this wand, I can draw no master, no ministry, no rules." Hermione stepped forward, her wand raised. "You'll destroy yourself. That power isn't meant for one person." Flint's eyes blazed. "Maybe not for anyone weak, but I'm not weak." He raised the wand, and the blue flames roared higher. The floor shook. Ancient sigils burst alight, spreading across the chamber like veins of fire. Harry shouted a counterspell, but the magic hit them like a storm. He was thrown back, his wand spinning from his grasp. Hermione grabbed his arm, pulling him to cover behind a stone pillar. "He's channeling it directly," she shouted over the roar. "It's too much. He can't hold it." And indeed, cracks had begun to spider along the wand's shaft, spilling light with every breath. Flint's smile faltered, his hand trembled. Then, above the chaos, a calm voice spoke, quiet but steady as a bell. "Enough!" Ollivander stood in the doorway of the chamber, robes fluttering in the rising wind. His wand was raised, but not to strike. "Calder," he said gently, "you were always brilliant, but brilliance without restraint is ruin. Let it go." For a heartbeat, the young man's eyes softened. Then he screamed, and the wand exploded in light. The world turned white, and Diagon Alley shuddered, as if the earth itself had taken a breath. Silence fell after the storm. Then came the crackle, the faint sound of magic unwinding, ebbing away like the tide. When Harry opened his eyes, the chamber was a ruin. The marble pedestal had split in two, and the blue flames were gone, replaced by a dim, trembling glow that pulsed through the stone like a dying heartbeat. Dust hung thick in the air, and the scent of burned wood filled his lungs. "Harry?" Hermione's voice came faintly beside him, strained but steady. "Are you all right?" He pushed himself upright, his ears ringing. "I think so." They looked where he had stood. A charred circle marred the floor, its edges etched with light that refused to fade. And there, standing amidst the settling dust, was Ollivander. The old wand-maker looked impossibly frail, his silver hair damp with sweat. His wand was gone, snapped clean in two and lying at his feet. Yet his eyes were clear, glowing faintly as if they carried the remnants of the light that had filled the chamber. "Ollivander?" Hermione said softly, moving toward him. "What happened?" He did not answer at first. He knelt beside the shattered pieces of his wand, fingers trembling as he touched them, then lifted his gaze toward the broken marble. "The heart," he murmured. He touched it, and it consumed him. I held it back as long as I could. Harry stepped closer. "Calder's gone?" "Gone?" Ollivander's voice trembled, uncertain. "No, consumed. That kind of magic leaves nothing behind, not body, not shadow, only echoes." The air stirred around them, faintly whispering, a voice too soft to understand, like wind caught in stone. Hermione shivered. "We need to get you out of here." They helped the old man to his feet, and together climbed back toward the surface. The light behind them dimmed with every step until the last flicker of blue vanished into darkness. When they emerged into the alley, dawn had just begun to break. The sky was streaked with pale gold, and the cobblestones glittered with dew. But Diagon Alley bore scars, cracks in the pavement, windows shattered, spells gone wild. Shopkeepers stood outside their doors, pale and confused as horrors moved among them. George ran toward them at once. Merlin's beard, what happened down there? Half the alley shook like an earthquake. Later, Harry said quickly, get the healers. Ollivander's hurt. But the wand maker waved him off. I am fine, Mr. Potter. Truly. He didn't look fine. His skin was ashen, and his hands trembled as if invisible. Yet there was a calmness in his eyes that unsettled Harry more than anything else. A quiet acceptance. Hermione summoned a team from the ministry, but by the time they arrived, Ollivander had vanished into his shop, locking the door behind him. No one saw him leave. 3 days later, the ministry concluded their investigation. They found no trace of Calder Flint. Not a wand, not a body, not even a magical signature. The chamber beneath Nocturne Alley had collapsed, sealing itself under layers of enchanted stone. Whatever magic had stirred there was gone, or so they believed. But Harry wasn't convinced. He stood outside Ollivander's on the 4th night, the alley quiet except for the soft rustle of enchanted signs. A faint light glowed behind the shutters, and through the narrow crack in the door he could hear the sound of carving, the careful rasp of a knife against wood. He pushed open the door. The air inside shimmered faintly. Hundreds of wand boxes lined the walls, as always, but there was a strange hum now, like a low musical note vibrating through the floorboards. Ollivander sat at his workbench, his face pale and drawn, a single piece of wood resting before him. You shouldn't be here, Mr. Potter, the old man said without looking up. You shouldn't be working, Harry replied quietly. You need rest. Ollivander smiled faintly. Rest? A wand maker rests only when his last wand is made. I have not yet reached that day. Harry stepped closer. What are you making? Ollivander's knife paused. A repair, he said softly. My wand is broken, and something must replace it. But the wood I use now, it feels different. It listens in ways it never did before. Harry frowned. You mean the magic that consumed Calder? Ollivander looked up at him then, and for a heartbeat, Harry saw a strange light flicker in his pupils. Faint, blue, like the glow from the chamber. The magic didn't consume me, he said. I thought I had buried the heart forever, but it left its echo in me. In every wand I have ever made. Harry's stomach tightened. That's why you destroyed the first one. You knew it was wrong. Yes, Ollivander whispered. And yet, perhaps the wrongness was mine, not the wand's. Calder only wanted to understand. Perhaps he was closer than I ever dared to be. He turned the half-carved wand in his hands. Do you know, Mr. Potter, that a wand maker can feel when his work is nearly done? It hums beneath his fingers. This one hums like a storm. Harry hesitated. You need to stop. If that's the same magic. But the old man smiled again, thin and distant. It is already awake, Mr. Potter, and it will not be stopped. The wand calls to its maker, and its maker must answer. Before Harry could reply, the shop lights flickered. Every wand and every box began to tremble, their lids rattling softly in unison. The air thrummed with energy, and low and resonant like 1,000 heartbeats at once. Then just as suddenly the sound ceased. Ollivander exhaled, his hand shaking. It grows stronger each night, he murmured. The heart stirs again beneath the earth. It seeks balance, but balance through destruction. Harry clenched his jaw. Then we'll stop it. The old man's gaze softened with something like pity. He cannot stop what was never meant to sleep. Hermione arrived at the shop the next morning, summoned by Harry's urgent owl. Together they pored over ministry maps, searching for remnants of the chamber. But the official records now listed the tunnels as collapsed, sealed by unbreakable wards. Hermione tapped her quill against the parchment, frowning. Even if it's sealed, magic doesn't just disappear. It must go somewhere. Harry nodded grimly. Ollivander says it's rising again. Maybe through him. She looked up sharply. Through him? You think he's channeling it? I think, Harry said quietly, it's using him. Ollivander's shop stood dark and silent, but the window glass shimmered faintly, not from candlelight, but from a pale glow pulsing within. When Harry reached for the door, it opened of its own accord. The shop was empty, the counters were bare. Only the faint hum remained, vibrating through the walls. At the center of the room lay a single wand, newly made, resting on a piece of velvet. It was carved of dark wood, streaked with silver, and it pulsed with a heartbeat of light. Ollivander was gone. Hermione lifted the wand with trembling hands. Harry, this is Phoenix ash ancestral hair. He remade it. Harry's breath caught. Then The words died on his tongue as a voice whispered from the shadows, soft, familiar, and filled with sorrow. Do not look for me, Mr. Potter. I go where the magic calls. The heart must be healed, or it will consume us all. The wand flashed once in Hermione's hand, a single pulse of blue light, and then went still. Outside Diagon Alley was silent once more. Yet beneath its stones, far below the shops and laughter, a faint echo stirred, the whisper of a heartbeat awakening again. The morning after Ollivander's disappearance, the sky over London burned a pale, eerie gold, the kind of light that seemed not to warm but to warn. A faint wind swept through the streets of Diagon Alley, rattling shutters and making signs creak as though the alley itself were murmuring in its sleep. The usual hum of commerce had faltered. Witches and wizards moved in small, hushed groups, whispering of strange flickers in the air, of spells going awry, of wands sparking without reason. At the Ministry of Magic, Harry and Hermione sat in the Auror office, surrounded by stacks of parchment, each sheet filled with reports of magical disturbances, charms unraveling, potions turning volatile, fireplaces flaring blue instead of green. Magic, it seemed, had begun to... Hermione's quill scratched across the desk as she muttered calculations under her breath. It's everywhere, she said, exasperated. Every district that draws power from the main ley line, London, Hogsmeade, even small wizarding hamlets in Kent, the flux is spreading like a pulse. Harry leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes, and the timing matches the night Ollivander vanished. Yes, she replied grimly. Whatever he took with him, or whatever took him, is resonating through the ley lines. The heart of magic isn't dormant anymore. A soft knock interrupted them. Ron Weasley entered, still wearing his Auror uniform, a bit singed at the shoulder. You two need to see this, he said, holding up a folded map. We've traced the magical tremors to an underground convergence beneath London, but it doesn't match the old ministry records. The readings are ancient, pre-Roman. Hermione's head snapped up. That would mean the chamber Ollivander sealed wasn't the only one. Ron nodded. There's another one beneath the Thames. The energy's strongest there, almost alive. Harry's jaw tightened. Then that's where we start. They met that night by the river, under the shadow of the Millennium Bridge. The air hummed faintly with power. Street lights flickered in rhythm with the river's flow, and the faint smell of ozone hung heavy. Hermione traced her wand in the air, casting a detection spell. Thin threads of silver light appeared, weaving downward through the bridge's support beams and into the depths below. "It's here," she whispered, "just beneath us." Ron peered over the edge. "So we're going into the river then?" Brilliant. With a few quick spells, they slipped beneath the water's surface. Bubbles shimmered around them as they descended, light from their wands. Then, beneath the riverbed, the water grew still, impossibly still, and they found themselves standing before an archway of stone engraved with runes so old even Hermione could not decipher them. The arch pulsed faintly with blue light, the same light that had burned in Ollivander's eyes. Harry reached out, and as his hand brushed the runes, the stone melted away like mist. A passage opened, spiraling down into blackness. They followed it in silence, the air thick with the scent of ancient dust and something else, something alive. A deep, steady rhythm thudded faintly in the walls, like the beat of a buried heart. The tunnel opened at last into a vast chamber that dwarfed the one beneath Nocturne Alley. The ceiling arched high above them, covered in runes that shimmered faintly like stars. At its center was a massive pool of liquid light, rippling with soft, slow pulses. Hermione's voice trembled as she spoke. "The heart." Ron took a cautious step closer. "It's beautiful," he murmured, "and it's humming, like it knows we're here." Harry nodded. "It's alive." Before any of them could move further, a voice echoed across the chamber, soft but resonant, filled with sorrow and power. "It is alive, Mr. Potter, and it remembers." From the far side of the pool, Garrick Ollivander stepped into view. His robes were scorched, his face pale, but there was a strange luminescence about him now. Light seemed to breathe from his skin, and the air around him shimmered faintly. "Ollivander," Harry called. "We thought you... gone?" The old man smiled faintly. "In some ways, perhaps I am. I am not what I was, Harry Potter. The heart has claimed me as its keeper." Hermione's wand trembled in her hand. "You can't control it, Ollivander. It's corrupting you." "No," he said softly. "It's purifying me. The heart has been bleeding for centuries, drawn upon by wizards who neither understood nor respected its balance. Every wand, every spell, every charm, it is tired, and it calls for renewal." Harry stepped closer, his voice firm. "You mean destruction? You're talking about cutting off magic." Ollivander's eyes glimmered. "Not cutting it off, resetting it, a new beginning. The world has grown reckless, even you, Mr. Potter, even the ministry you serve, bend magic to your will without pause. But magic was never meant to serve man, it was meant to be." "The last time someone thought that way," Hermione said sharply, "he nearly tore the world apart." Ollivander's expression softened with sadness. "You mistake me for a tyrant. I seek no throne, no power, only peace for the thing that has served us so long. But peace comes through sleep, and for that all wands must fall silent." The pool of light surged, waves lapping against the stone edge. The runes above began to shimmer more brightly. Harry raised his wand. "We can't let you do this." The old man inclined his head gently. "Then you will have to stop me, as students stop a teacher who is taught too well." Before any of them could move, the light burst upward, forming a column that struck the ceiling. Magic flared around them in waves, crackling through their wands and sending sparks into the air. Ron shouted something, but his voice was lost in the roar. The floor split beneath them, and the liquid light began to rise, spilling toward the walls. Hermione's quick spell formed a protective shield, a dome of gold that held the waves at bay. "Harry," she yelled, "if he completes the binding, it'll drain every wand in Britain." Harry's eyes locked on Ollivander, who stood in the center of the rising light, hands raised as if in prayer. The glow was consuming him, threads of blue fire weaving through his body. "Stop," Harry shouted, breaking through the barrier. He waded through the liquid light, warm, pulsing, alive, until he reached Ollivander's side. "You'll kill yourself." The old man smiled faintly. "But something greater must live." Harry gripped his arm. "There's another way." For a moment, Ollivander looked at him, truly looked, and something like clarity passed through his eyes. "Perhaps," he whispered, "if you can bear the cost." He pressed the wand, that wand, the one of phoenix ash and thestral hair, into Harry's hand. The instant Harry touched it, his mind flooded with light. He saw flashes, centuries of wand makers forging in secret, of wizards drawing upon the heart's power, of Ollivander burying his first creation in shame. Then the light began to twist. The chamber trembled. "Harry!" Hermione cried. "Let it go!" But Harry held firm. The wand burned in his hand, the magic coursing through him like fire and ice. He focused on the single thought that had guided him through every battle, every loss, every impossible choice. Protection, not power. And in that instant, the light obeyed. The roaring ceased. The waves sank. The runes dimmed to a gentle pulse. When the smoke cleared, Ollivander was gone. Only his voice lingered, faint as breath. "Thank you, Mr. Potter. The heart will sleep again, but not forever." Harry fell to his knees, the wand still in his grasp. Its glow had faded to a soft, steady heartbeat. Alive, but calm. Hermione and Ron hurried to him, helping him stand. "What happened?" Ron asked, his voice hushed. Harry looked at the wand, then toward the still pool. "He's gone," he said quietly. "But he did it. He calmed it. For now." They climbed back to the surface as dawn broke once more over London. The river flowed quietly, the city at peace. Yet as Harry looked down at the wand in his hand, he felt it stir faintly, pulsing once like a breath. And far below the streets, in the silence beneath the world, the heart beat, once in answer. The world did not end that morning. The sun rose as it always did, spilling light over the slate rooftops of London, brushing the broken stones. But there was something changed in the air, a subtle stillness, as if the magic that filled the wizarding world had drawn one long, deep breath and was waiting to exhale. 3 days passed. The tremors stopped. The fires dimmed. Wands that had flickered and failed began to work again, though their sparks were weaker, uncertain. Wizards spoke in hushed voices in the leaky cauldron, wondering what had happened beneath the city, and why their spells now felt slower, heavier. None knew the truth. Save three, Harry, Hermione, and Ron sat together in the Ministry's Auror office, a stack of reports between them. Each page spoke of the same thing, quiet after the storm, but not peace. Spells are misfiring, Hermione said, scanning one of the reports. It's as though the magic itself is tired. Ron leaned back in his chair. Can magic be tired? Harry didn't answer. He sat with the wand in his hand, the wand that Ollivander had given him before the chamber fell silent. It looked ordinary now, its silver veins dull in the lamplight. But every so often, when his mind drifted, he could feel it pulse faintly in his palm like a heartbeat. Hermione's eyes flicked toward him. You've been holding that thing for hours. Has it changed? Harry shook his head. No, but I can feel it listening, like it's waiting for something. Waiting? Ron said. For what? To wake up again? Harry didn't reply. Instead, he rose and crossed to the window, looking out over the Ministry courtyard. Wizards hurried below, their robes rustling in the morning wind, unaware of the quiet unease that hung over them. He remembered Ollivander's final words. The heart will sleep again, but not forever. Hermione set down her parchment. We need to secure it, Harry. The wand, if it's tied to the heart, we can't risk it falling into anyone else's hands. I know, he said softly, but something tells me that locking it away won't be enough. If it stirs again, this will too. Then we'll have to find a way to keep it calm, Hermione replied. Before anyone else does. Ron frowned. Anyone else? She glanced at the open reports. People talk, and when people talk, others listen. If there's power to be found, someone will try to take it, especially the kind of people who don't understand what it costs. Harry turned back to them, his decision made. Then we'll find them first. That afternoon they returned to Diagon Alley. The shops were open again, though the air still smelled faintly of burned ozone. Weasley's Wizard Wheezes had repaired its shattered windows, and a new sign hung above the door reading, "No refunds on unstable charms." You've been warned. George met them outside. You look like you haven't slept in days, he said, offering Harry a cup of strong tea. If this is about Ollivander, well, no one's seen him. His shop's empty. The wands, gone. Hermione's brow furrowed. Gone? All of them? George nodded. Every shelf stripped clean, the drawers, the cabinets. It's like he packed up the whole shop and vanished. Harry's fingers tightened around the cup. He didn't take them, the heart did. George stared. The heart of what now? Harry hesitated, then shook his head. Nothing. Forget it. But even as he said it, he knew the truth was spreading. Too many people had seen the blue glow over London that night, had felt their wands tremble, had heard the hum beneath their feet. Already rumors were twisting into legend, and legends, in the wizarding world, had a way of becoming dangerous. As they spoke, the faint chime of a bell sounded across the alley. Harry turned, and froze. A boy stood at the door of the empty wand shop, 12, perhaps 13, with dark curls and pale eyes. He was gazing through the dusty glass as if listening to something inside. Then, as if feeling their eyes upon him, he looked back and smiled. Before Harry could move, he chased after him at once, weaving through witches and warlocks, past cauldron shops and quill stands. But when he reached the end of the alley, the boy was gone. Only the faintest trace of blue shimmered in the air where he had stood. Hermione caught up to him out of breath. Harry, what happened? There was a boy, he said, scanning the street. He was standing at Ollivander's door. He looked straight at me, and then he disappeared. Ron frowned. You think he was one of the kids from the alley? Harry shook his head. No. There was something off about him. His eyes, they looked just like Ollivander's. Hermione finished quietly. That night, Harry couldn't sleep. The wand lay on the table beside him, glimmering faintly in the moonlight. He stared at it for hours, feeling its quiet thrum in the dark. And just before dawn, he heard it. A whisper. Soft, distant, but unmistakable. Beneath the river, the heart still dreams. He sat up, the sound fading as quickly as it came. The next morning, Hermione and Ron met him by the riverbank. The Thames rolled dark and calm beneath a gray sky, the wind sharp with winter's edge. "Are you sure about this?" Hermione asked, wrapping her cloak tighter. "We sealed the chamber. The Ministry sealed it again." Harry nodded. "I know. But I heard something last night. The heart's not done." They descended once more through the concealed passage beneath the bridge. The runes on the walls glowed faintly as they passed, brighter than before, as though stirred by their presence. When they reached the cavern, the pool of light that had once pulsed at its center was gone. Yet the air thrummed with a steady rhythm, slow and deep. Hermione crouched, brushing her hand over the stone. "It's like it's breathing." Ron shifted uneasily. "I hate when she says things like that." Harry stepped forward, holding the wand before him. Its tip began to glow faintly. He could feel it pulling, guiding him toward the far wall, where a faint outline of a doorway shimmered. "This wasn't here before," he murmured. Before Hermione could stop him, he pressed his hand to the door. The stone rippled beneath his touch, melting into light. A narrow chamber lay beyond, filled with hundreds of old wands, ancient, splintered, and humming softly. And there, at the far end, upon a stone altar, rested a small wooden box, bound in silver. Harry approached slowly. "Ollivander's work," he said. "I'd know it anywhere." Hermione traced the runes carved into its lid. "These markings, they're older than wand lore. They're a binding to hold something alive." Harry's pulse quickened. Or someone. He lifted the lid. Inside lay a single feather, white, shimmering faintly blue at the tips. It pulsed once, twice, and then, in a voice soft as breath, the whisper came again. "The Maker sleeps, but not forever." Hermione stepped back. "Oh, Merlin, it's not just the heart that's alive, it's him. Ollivander's become part of it." Harry stared at the feather, the weight of it settling coldly in his chest. The glow from the wand deepened, threads of silver light stretching from it toward the feather, connecting as though two halves of the same soul had found one another again. Then the light faded. The chamber grew still once more, but the silence was not comforting. It was waiting. Harry closed the box and looked to his friends. "We need to keep this hidden. If anyone finds it, if the wrong person does, the heart could wake again." Hermione nodded. "We'll bury it where no one can reach." Ron sighed. "You mean Hogwarts, don't you?" A faint smile touched Harry's lips. "There's no safer place." As they climbed back toward the surface, the faint rhythm beneath the ground followed them, a heartbeat slow and patient. It would sleep for now, lulled by the calm of three friends. But beneath London, beneath the rivers and the stone and the centuries of spellcraft, something vast and ancient listened still. And in its dreams, it remembered a name, Ollivander, and it waited to wake. Snow fell thick and silent over the Hogwarts grounds, softening the towers and turrets beneath a pale morning sky. The castle stood timeless as ever, its windows glowing faintly with warmth and candlelight. Yet even in that serenity, a tension lingered. invisible but alive, like the whisper of a storm far off at sea. Harry stood at the edge of the black lake, the frozen surface glimmering beneath his boots. The wooden box, the one holding the feather, the echo of Ollivander, rested in his gloved hands. Behind him, Hermione and Ron trudged through the snow, their breath forming white clouds. "I still think this is mad," Ron muttered, his voice muffled by his scarf. "Bringing something that dangerous back to Hogwarts?" "There's nowhere safer," Hermione replied firmly. "The enchantments here are older than the Ministry itself. Besides, the castle's magic knows how to protect what shouldn't be found." Harry said nothing. He watched the towers reflect across the lake, rippling faintly beneath the drifting flakes. Hogwarts had been the beginning of everything, and perhaps now it would have to guard the end. Together they crossed the courtyard and entered the castle through the great oak doors. Warmth wrapped around them at once. The scent of wood smoke and roasted chestnuts, the distant laughter of students, the hum of a place alive with learning. For a moment it felt like nothing had changed, but Hermione caught it first, a flicker of unease in the air, a soft quiver of the torchlight. The castle itself was listening. They were met in the entrance hall by Professor McGonagall, her tartan robes immaculate despite the snowflakes that clung to her shoulders. Her sharp eyes narrowed as she took in their expressions. Potter, Granger, Weasley. To what do I owe the pleasure of 3 of my former pupils arriving unannounced, and armed no less? Harry bowed his head slightly. "We need your help, Professor. It's about something we found beneath London, something that can't be left unguarded." McGonagall's eyes flicked to the box in his hands. "You brought it here?" It wasn't a question. "We had no choice," Hermione said. "It's tied to the foundations of all wand magic. It's alive, in a way." The headmistress's mouth tightened, but after a long silence, she gave a curt nod. "Follow me." They trailed her through the castle's winding corridors, down staircases that turned of their own accord, past portraits that leaned from their frames to whisper curious questions. The air grew colder as they descended. Finally, McGonagall stopped before a door none of them remembered. It was small and made of iron, its surface etched with protective runes that glowed faintly as her wand brushed them. "This chamber was sealed after the last war," she said. "Albus Dumbledore used it to safeguard certain artifacts that the world was not yet ready to forget. You may add this to the collection." She gestured, and the door swung open with a low groan. Beyond lay a circular room lined with shelves of ancient objects, each encased in protective wards that shimmered like glass. The air smelled of dust and old spells. Harry stepped forward and set the box upon a stone pedestal at the room's center. The runes on its surface flared briefly, then dimmed, as if the castle itself had accepted the offering. For a long moment no one spoke. Then McGonagall murmured, "May I know what lies within?" "A feather," Harry said quietly. "But it isn't from any creature we know. It's part of someone. Garrick Ollivander, he gave himself to the heart of magic to keep the world from breaking." The old witch's gaze softened with sorrow. "A sacrifice worthy of the ages. Power like that draws those who hunger for it." Her words lingered like frost. They sealed the chamber again and made their way back to the surface. Yet as they climbed the last staircase, Harry paused. He could feel it, the faintest pulse through the stone walls, like a heartbeat echoing from the depths. The castle had accepted the relic, yes, but it had also awakened to it. That night the wind howled around the towers, and the fire in the Gryffindor common room burned lower than usual. The portraits dozed in their frames. The castle was sleeping, or pretending to. Harry sat by the hearth with the wand Ollivander had left him. It gleamed faintly in the firelight, silver veins winding along its dark wood like rivers of moonlight. Hermione was reading by candlelight, a pile of books open beside her, texts on wand lore, ley lines, and magical consciousness. "It doesn't make sense," she said finally. "If the heart feeds every spell in the world, then sealing it should have cut us off completely. But it didn't. Maybe because it's not a source," Harry said. "Maybe it's a living thing. You can't destroy something alive, only put it to rest." Ron, sprawled on the couch, groaned. "If it's alive, let's not wake it again, yeah? We've had enough world-ending nonsense to last a lifetime." Harry smiled faintly, but said nothing. His thoughts were far away, deep beneath the earth, where a faint blue glow might even now be stirring. He didn't sleep. When dawn finally crept through the windows, he wandered the corridors alone, the wand in his pocket heavy with meaning. The castle whispered around him, the soft sigh of portraits, the creak of shifting stone. He found himself outside the room of requirement, that ever-changing space that had once hidden armies and secrets alike. The door appeared at his thought, silent, unbidden. Inside was a dimly lit chamber filled with shelves of forgotten things, old broomsticks, cracked cauldrons, shattered armor, but at its center, upon a simple wooden table, lay a single wand box. Dust gathered thick upon it, yet the name etched on its lid was clear, Calder Flint. Harry's blood ran cold. He lifted the box. Empty. Only a faint scorch mark remained inside, shaped like a handprint. A chill swept through him. "He's not gone," he whispered. "He's been here." The air shifted. A faint flicker of blue light danced in the far corner of the room, moving like a shadow with purpose. "You took it from me?" The voice was a whisper, but it carried like thunder. Harry spun, wand raised. But there was no one there, only the flicker, twisting, stretching, taking form. The shape of a man, thin and tall, eyes burning faintly in the dark. "You buried what should have been born. The heart is not done." "Flint," Harry said quietly. "You should have stayed gone." The apparition smiled, hollow and bright. "Gone? No, Potter. You saw what it does. You can't kill magic, it only changes its shape. And so did I." The air around them began to hum. The objects on the shelves rattled. Sparks flickered through the room like restless fireflies. Harry stepped back, wand steady. "What do you want?" "To finish what I began," Flint said, his voice echoing like wind in a grave. "The world's magic is weak, tamed. You helped put it to sleep, but soon it will wake, and I will be there to claim it." Before Harry could speak again, the shadow dissolved into mist. The humming ceased. He stood alone, heart pounding, surrounded by the silence of forgotten things. By breakfast, he told Hermione and Ron everything. Hermione's face went pale. If he's somehow bound to the heart, he could awaken it again from anywhere. The castle's magic may have drawn him back. So not only do we have a possessed feather in the basement, now we've got a ghost wand maker wandering the corridors. Harry's jaw set. He's not a ghost. He's something worse. As they spoke, far below the castle, in the sealed chamber, where the box rested, the runes began to glow once more. The feather inside trembled. A faint whisper filled the air. two voices this time intertwined, one soft and weary, one sharp and burning. Awake. Snow continued to fall upon Hogwarts, covering its spires in white silence. Yet beneath that calm, the pulse of the ancient magic stirred again, a quiet reminder that even the deepest sleep cannot last forever. Winter deepened at Hogwarts, turning the castle into a fortress of frost and echoing corridors. Icicles hung like glass daggers from the high windows, and the air shimmered faintly with the cold breath of enchantments that had endured 1,000 years. Snow blanketed the forbidden forest in white silence, and the lake lay frozen, smooth as obsidian beneath the pale moon. But within those ancient walls, something restless stirred. Students whispered of flickering torches, of books whispering on their shelves when no one stood near, of strange ripples passing across the air in the great hall, as though the very magic of the castle were breathing in uneven rhythm. Professors brushed it off as superstition, but the portraits were uneasy. Even the stone gargoyles muttered under their breath. Harry could feel it too. It began as a hum in his wand, faint, rhythmic like a heartbeat, then grew stronger each passing day. He avoided using spells unless absolutely necessary. When he did, sparks of blue bled from his wand tip, no matter the incantation. Hermione spent her nights in the library, poring over ancient scrolls beneath the light of flickering candles. "It's all connected," she said one evening, her voice hoarse. The castle, the enchantments here were woven into the same ley lines that feed the heart of magic. Hogwarts isn't just a school, Harry. It's part of the living web itself. Ron frowned. "So you're saying the school's alive?" "In a way," she replied. "It listens, it protects, it remembers. But now it's dreaming, and something's bleeding through those dreams." Harry rubbed his temples. "Flint." Hermione nodded grimly. "If his spirit is bound to the heart, then every pulse of it pulls him closer to the surface." That night the three of them went down to the hidden chamber beneath the castle, the one where the box lay sealed in stone. The air was sharp with old magic, the kind that hummed in the bones. As they entered, the protective runes flickered like dying embers. Hermione lifted her wand. Finite incantatum. The light steadied, but the box was no longer closed. Its silver bindings hung loose, as though undone from within. The feather inside was gone. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The air felt heavier, thicker, as though it waited for someone to speak first. Then a whisper slid through the room, low and cold. "He wakes." The torches flared, throwing jagged shadows across the walls. "Move!" Harry shouted, pulling Hermione back just as a blast of light burst from the pedestal. The magic rippled through the chamber, rattling the stone. Runes carved into the walls glowed a blinding blue. When the light faded, the box was nothing but ash, and hovering where it had been was a single, flickering figure. Calder Flint. His form was sharper now, more defined than the mist Harry had seen before. He looked almost alive. "Potter," he hissed, eyes gleaming like frost. "You sealed the heart, but you didn't kill it. You only delayed what must come. Magic cannot be caged." Harry raised his wand. "You're not magic, Flint. You're a shadow, and shadows fade." Flint's smile was thin, but shadows grow longer when the light dies. He raised his hand, and the runes on the walls ignited in a circle of blue fire. The magic surged upward through the stones of the castle, through the corridors and towers, shaking the very foundations. Above them, the students screamed as torches burst to life and walls trembled. Hermione shouted an incantation, her wand blazing gold. The circle faltered for a heartbeat, but Flint's laughter drowned her spell. You cannot stop what has begun. The heart calls and I answer. And then he was gone, a streak of light vanishing into the ceiling, leaving only the lingering pulse of power behind. They ran, through hallways where suits of armor turned their heads as they passed, through staircases that moved faster than they should have, through air that seemed charged with invisible thunder. When they reached the entrance hall, students had gathered in confusion, clutching their wands, staring at the sky. The ceiling above them, enchanted to mirror the heavens, was no longer calm. Blue light rippled across it like lightning trapped beneath glass. "It's spreading through the wards," Hermione gasped. "He's drawing from the castle itself." McGonagall appeared at their side, her robes swirling. "What is happening?" "Flint," Harry said. "He's inside the castle, and he's trying to awaken the heart again." The headmistress's face paled. "Then we must drive him out." She lifted her wand, voice cutting through the din. "Professors, secure the students in their dormitories. Seal the Great Hall." As teachers rushed to obey, the floor beneath them quaked. The blue lightning in the ceiling struck downward, shattering through the illusion and hitting the stone floor with a deafening crack. For a moment, the world filled with light. Then came silence. When the brightness faded, they stood within a ring of melted stone. At its center, hovering in midair, was a faintly glowing. It pulsed once, twice, and then split in two, releasing a plume of mist that shaped itself into two figures. One was Calder Flint, the other Garrick Ollivander. He looked older still, translucent, his expression weary, but his voice was clear when he spoke. "Enough, Calder. You do not command the heart, you are consumed by it." Flint's face twisted. "You made me this way, old man. You denied me the truth of creation, the freedom of pure magic. Now I will unmake your world of cages and rules." He flung out his hand. The air rippled, stone cracked. The enchanted suits of armor lining the hall burst from their pedestals, moving like living giants. Students screamed as they turned their blades upon the living. Harry ran forward, casting shield after shield, deflecting blows that sent shockwaves through the floor. Hermione's spells streaked gold, freezing suits of armor mid-stride. Ron hurled a disarming charm that shattered one to pieces, but Flint was everywhere, his laughter echoing through the air as he drew strength from the castle's core. Then Ollivander raised his hand. "Harry," he called, his voice faint, "the wand. Use the wand I gave you. It was forged to restore balance. You are its master now." Harry drew it. The wand blazed with white fire, brighter than he'd ever seen. He felt the pulse of the heart, not as rage or destruction, but as vast, ancient sorrow. He understood then that magic itself wanted peace. He aimed at the ceiling. "Finite Cordis!" The spell burst forth, a column of light that tore through the blue glow above and vanished into the night sky. The hum stopped. The torches flickered out, leaving only silence and the faint hiss of falling dust. Flint screamed, not in pain but in fury, as the light began to consume him, stripping away his form until only smoke remained. "You can't destroy me. Magic will always return." "I'm not destroying it, Harry. I'm setting it free." The smoke folded in upon itself, imploding into a single spark, and then was gone. The armor froze where it stood. The light above dimmed. Slowly, the enchantments of the castle steadied, as though exhaling after a long struggle. When the quiet settled, Ollivander turned to Harry. You have done what even I could not. The heart rests again, not in sleep, but in balance. Guard it well. His form began to fade, light dissolving into the air. Will we ever see you again? Hermione asked softly. Ollivander smiled. You will, in every wand you hold, every spark you summon. Magic is not a weapon or a gift. It is life itself. And life always finds a way to renew. Then he was gone. Outside, the snow had ceased, the sky cleared to reveal stars bright and untroubled. Hogwarts stood silent and whole once more. Harry looked down at the wand, now dark, quiet, ordinary. He slipped it into his cloak and exhaled slowly. It's over, he murmured, but far below, in the deep foundations of the castle, a faint blue shimmer lingered. Not threatening, not cruel, merely waiting, watching. And as dawn broke over the towers, the ancient stones of Hogwarts whispered softly, as if remembering. The days that followed the storm at Hogwarts were heavy with quiet. Snow melted from the towers, the lake thawed to mirror the pale February sky, and the great halls once more filled with laughter and the murmur of daily life. But beneath the warmth of torches and the sound of spells echoing through corridors, there remained a tremor too faint for most to notice, the lingering sigh of the heart. Harry noticed it first in the little things, the way his wand would hum softly when he walked past the great staircase, or how the portraits would pause mid-conversation, their eyes following him with an odd, knowing silence. At night, when all the castle slept, he could hear it, a faint rhythm in the walls, like a slow heart. Hermione buried herself in study. The library had become her refuge once again. She scoured the restricted section, pored over spell theory and the old journals of headmasters. Long gone, her desk was a fortress of parchment and ink. I found something, she told Harry one evening, her eyes glinting behind tired spectacles. There are references to something called the resonance of the heart. Dumbledore wrote about it briefly. A moment when magic itself tries to rebalance after a disturbance. It manifests as fluctuations, visions, even echoes of the dead. Harry frowned. You mean like Ollivander? Hermione hesitated. Yes, but also Flint. At that, Ron, who had been dozing by the fire, groaned. Not him again. I thought you blasted him to dust. I did, Harry said quietly, staring into the flames. But dust still remembers the wind. Outside, the night howled across the mountains. The sound crept through the stones of the castle, carrying with it the scent of snow and something older, like the breath of forgotten places. The next morning, Harry awoke to find an owl tapping at his window. Its feathers were black as ink, its eyes pale as moonlight. He untied the note from its leg and unfolded it. To Auror Potter, the ministry requests your presence. Magical anomalies have been detected across the country. Wands faltering, enchantments unraveling. Some claim to see blue light in their dreams. Kingsley Shacklebolt. Harry read it twice, his stomach sinking. By afternoon, he and Hermione stood once more in the atrium of the Ministry of Magic, where polished floors gleamed under enchanted chandeliers. The great fountain had been rebuilt since the war, its waters dancing gently around statues of witches and wizards united in peace. Yet now the light upon the water flickered, dim and unsteady. Kingsley met them with grave eyes. It's happening everywhere, he said without preamble. The heart's energy isn't just stirring in our world, it's bleeding into theirs. Hermione's face went pale. That shouldn't be possible. The barrier between the magical and non-magical worlds was reinforced centuries ago. Unless, Harry murmured, someone's trying to break it. Kingsley nodded. Exactly. We've intercepted whispers of a group calling themselves the Unbound. They believe the Heart's awakening is a sign that magic should no longer hide from the world. They're fools, Hermione said sharply. Magic unleashed without harmony would destroy both worlds. Yes, Kingsley agreed, but their leader is gathering followers. Wandless witches, outcast scholars, even centaurs and goblins who believe the heart will restore balance through chaos. Harry felt the cold settle deeper in his chest. Who's leading them? Kingsley hesitated. We don't know. The name they use is the heir of the wand maker. Hermione's quill slipped from her hand. No, it can't be. Calder Flint is dead, Harry said. Kingsley's expression darkened. Perhaps, but someone is using his name and his power. That evening they returned to Hogwarts with grim resolve. The students were safe, the wards secure, but the castle seemed to feel their unease. Shadows stretched longer along the corridors. Candles flickered in patterns like breathing. In the great hall, McGonagall awaited them. She had heard the Ministry's report. Her mouth was set in a thin line, her eyes sharper than steel. If someone seeks to claim the heart again, they will look here first, she said. The castle remembers its own secrets. We must ensure it remembers them wisely. Harry nodded. Then we prepare. For days they worked. Hermione wove new protective enchantments around the sealed chamber beneath the school. Ron patrolled the grounds, aided by a small army of aurors stationed in Hogsmeade. Harry walked the halls at night, tracing the ley lines he could now feel, but peace was fleeting. It began with the weather. A sudden heat in the middle of February. Ice melted overnight, flooding the lower corridors. The sky turned strange shades. Gray at dawn, deep violet by noon, and always that faint pulse beneath the earth. On the fourth night, the pulse grew louder. Harry woke with a start. The air was thick, charged. Blue light pulsed faintly through the cracks in the stone walls. He rushed from his quarters, wand drawn, and met Hermione in the corridor, her face pale, eyes wide. "It's the chamber," she whispered. "The wards are breaking." They ran, down staircase after staircase, through echoing halls that trembled underfoot. When they reached the sealed door, its runes were blazing with blue fire. Ron was already there, wand raised. "It started on its own. I didn't touch anything, I swear." The fire pulsed once, and then went out. Silence fell. Then the door opened. A rush of wind swept through the corridor, carrying the scent of smoke and ashes. Inside the chamber, the pedestal where the box had once stood was empty, but carved into the stone, glowing faintly, was a mark. The shape of a feather crossed by a wand, and beneath it a single line of words burned into the rock. "The Wandmaker's heir has risen." The castle groaned. Magic stirred like a giant rolling in its sleep. Ron backed away slowly. "Tell me that doesn't mean what I think it means." Hermione's eyes were wide, her voice barely a whisper. "Someone has taken the heart's fragment, and they're binding it to themselves." Harry stepped forward, tracing the glowing mark with his hand. The stone was cold, but a faint pulse beat beneath it, steady and strong. He turned to his friends, his face set with grim resolve. "Then we find them, before they finish what Flint began." Outside, the wind howled through the mountains once more. The snow returned, falling thick and heavy as if the sky itself But deep below the castle, in the hidden veins of the world, a new rhythm began to beat, faster now and no longer content to sleep. And somewhere far from Hogwarts, in a chamber lit by flickering blue light, a hooded figure stood before a circle of followers. The mark of the wand and feather burned upon his hand. "The time of concealment is over," he said, his voice calm and cold. "Magic was never meant to be hidden. The heart calls to those who will listen. Let the world feel its true breath once more." The followers bowed their heads, and above them, unseen by mortal eyes, the faint shimmer of the heart flared, a pulse that rippled outward across the night, reaching every wand, every spell, every breath of magic in the world. The balance was shifting again, and the world was listening. Storms gathered over Britain. The sky, once silver and calm, had turned the color of bruised iron. Lightning slashed the horizon above the moors, and thunder rolled through valleys that had long forgotten such power. The magical world, though outwardly unchanged, felt on the edge of something vast and unknown. Everywhere, odd things began to happen. Muggle clocks ran backward, owls flew in perfect circles over sleeping towns. Spells meant to mend, instead, shattered, while enchanted fires burned cold and blue. Those who listened closely could hear a faint humming in the air, a rhythm older than language. It was as if the earth itself was remembering magic's first heartbeat. At the Ministry of Magic, reports flooded in faster than parchment could be sorted. Kingsley Shacklebolt, ever calm, stood before a map of Britain, its surface alive with flickering lights, each a place of magical disturbance. The lights were spreading. "The ley lines are reacting," said Hermione, tracing the glowing threads with her wand. "The energy's moving north, toward the Highlands, toward Hogwarts." Harry stared at the map, jaw tight. "The heir of the wand maker. He's using the ley lines to feed it." Ron, standing by the door, rubbed the back of his neck uneasily. "You mean he's trying to wake it up all over again? After all we did to put it back to sleep?" Hermione's eyes darkened. "Not just wake it, merge with it. If he binds himself fully to the heart, he'll become its vessel, part man, part magic, and nothing could stand against that." The air in the room trembled faintly, as though the thought alone had weight. Kingsley turned from the map. "We've already dispatched patrols to the Highlands, but they've reported strange illusions. Entire forests shifting, paths leading nowhere. It's as though the land itself is hiding him." "It's not the land," Harry said. "It's the castle. Hogwarts is trying to protect itself, but it's weakening." Kingsley gave him a long, steady look. "Then you know where you must go." And so before the next dawn, they went. The journey north was long and quiet. The snow had begun to melt, but the rivers were still edged with ice, and the air smelled of stone and storm. As they passed through scattered villages, witches and wizards emerged from doorways to watch them, fearful, hopeful, uncertain. The name the heir of the wand maker had begun to spread like wildfire, whispered in pubs and street corners, wrapped in awe and dread. When at last the towers of Hogwarts came into view, lightning forked above them. The castle loomed vast and dark against the storm, every window flickering like a candle in the wind. The gates were open, they stepped inside. The courtyard was empty, snow trampled into wet gray slush. A strange energy pressed against them, heavy, electric, alive. Every stone underfoot seemed to hum faintly. "It feels different," Hermione murmured, "like the whole place is awake." Harry said nothing. He could feel it too. The same rhythm he'd felt in London. It beat through his veins now, faint but insistent, as though the heart itself recognized him. Inside the castle, the torches burned with blue flame. The portraits along the walls were silent, their painted eyes wide with fear. The staircases stood still, refusing to move. Then came a voice, smooth and calm, echoing through the halls. "Welcome back, Auror Potter." They turned. A man stood at the far end of the corridor, cloaked in black, his hood drawn low. In one hand, he held a wand carved from dark wood veined with silver, identical to the one Ollivander had forged. Harry's pulse quickened. "You're the heir." The figure lowered his hood. His face was young, pale, his eyes cold blue, and familiar. "It can't be," Hermione whispered. "He's Calder Flint's son," the man finished softly. "A child raised on stories of betrayal and chains. You destroyed my father, but you couldn't destroy his dream." Harry stepped forward, wand raised. "Your father tried to tear the world apart." "My father tried to free it," the heir said. "Magic should not serve. It should live. You and your kind turned it into a tool, something to wield and measure. But the heart remembers what it once was, and it remembers me." He lifted his wand, and the air crackled. Blue light flared along the walls, forming symbols that spun like gears. The ground beneath them trembled, and through the windows the storm outside shifted, lightning striking in perfect rhythm with the pulse of the castle. Hermione shouted a counterspell, but the magic splintered before it reached him. He smiled faintly. "You can't fight what's already inside you. The heart flows through every wand, every spell, every breath you take." Then he turned his eyes to Harry. "And you, Potter, the last bearer of the Wandmaker's gift. You carry a piece of it still, don't you?" Harry's hand closed around his wand. He could feel it vibrating, alive with heat. "You'll never control it." The heir's expression darkened. "I will become it." He thrust his wand toward the ceiling, and a column of blue fire erupted, striking through stone and sky. The sound was deafening. The torches went out. When the light cleared, they stood in the ruins of the great hall. The enchanted ceiling had vanished, replaced by the storm itself, clouds swirling in impossible shapes, lightning illuminating runes etched across the heavens. Students and professors had gathered along the walls, their faces pale. McGonagall stood at the front, wand drawn, eyes blazing. "You will not defile this place," she said, her voice ringing through the hall. The air only smiled. "This place was built upon the heart's breath. It is mine by right." Then the earth split. A surge of energy tore through the floor, sending cracks racing across the stone. From those cracks rose threads of blue light, twisting together, forming a shape, a vast, pulsing heart made of pure magic. Its glow filled the hall, its rhythm matching the thunder overhead. Hermione gasped. "He's awakened a fragment of it." Harry knew what he had to do. He stepped forward, ignoring the tremors shaking the hall. The wand in his hand flared bright white, the veins along its shaft glowing like molten silver. He could feel Ollivander's presence in its core, calm, steady, waiting. The air turned toward him. "You can't stop me." "I'm not trying to," Harry said. "I'm reminding it who it is." He raised the wand, and a beam of light burst forth, striking the heart of magic at the center of the hall. For a moment, the blue and white lights clashed, fury against calm, chaos against harmony. The walls shuddered, windows shattered, magic screamed through the air like a living thing. Then the two lights began to merge, the The blue softened, its edges dimming, the pulsing steadied, the runes on the ceiling faded to white, and in that silence, a voice filled the air. Not human, not divine, but something in between. Magic is not yours to own. It lives where balance dwells. The air cried out. As the light enveloped him, his form dissolved, scattering like ash in the wind. The heart's glow sank back into the earth, sealing the cracks as though they had never been. The storm outside ceased. The great hall was whole again. When the light faded completely, Harry knelt on the stone floor, breathless. The wand in his hand was dark, lifeless, its power spent. Hermione was beside him in an instant, helping him rise. "Is it over?" she whispered. He looked toward the ceiling, now calm and clear, the stars shining through as if nothing had happened. "For now," he said softly, "but magic never truly sleeps. It dreams." McGonagall approached, her expression grave yet proud. "You've saved more than this castle tonight, Potter. You've reminded the world what it means to wield magic, not to own it." Harry managed a faint smile. "Ollivander taught me that." As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the castle in gold, the last echo of the storm faded into silence. The students, weary but safe, returned to their dormitories. Professors tended to the damage, and deep beneath the castle, where the heart once pulsed, a faint light flickered, not in anger nor in sorrow, but in peace. The balance had been restored, for now, but in the farthest reaches of the magical world, in the cold caves of the north, where ley lines met beneath the sea, something ancient opened its eyes. A faint whisper carried across the waves, almost a sigh. Magic remembers, and the world, unknowingly, turned toward the next dawn. Weeks passed. Winter surrendered at last, and the chill that had clung to the stones of Hogwarts melted into the first soft breath of spring. The towers gleamed wet with rain, the lake shimmered once more with reflected sunlight, and the forbidden forest hummed quietly with new life. Yet beneath the beauty of renewal, something peace had returned, but it was a fragile peace, the kind that holds its breath. The heart's awakening, brief though it had been, had rippled through every corner of the magical world. Magic felt heavier now, slower, as though it moved with newfound caution. Wands hummed differently. Charms that had once flared bright now glowed steady and subdued. There was balance, yes, but it came with the weight of awareness. In the courtyard, Harry stood watching a group of students practicing spells under Professor Longbottom's eye. He smiled faintly as one of them misfired a levitation charm and sent her hat sailing into the lake. Laughter followed, warm and pure, and for a moment the world felt right. Then a shiver ran through the air. The ripples on the water stilled. Hermione appeared beside him, parchment in hand, her brow furrowed. "They've finished the Ministry's investigation," she said. "The heir left traces of himself behind, not enough to reform, but enough to echo." Harry turned to her. "You mean he's not gone?" "Not exactly," she hesitated. "Magic like that doesn't die. It disperses, fragments. The heart absorbed him, but parts of his essence may linger within the ley lines. Kingsley believes we'll see aftershocks for years." Harry's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where the mountains faded into mist. "The world's changing, Hermione. We felt it. Every witch and wizard felt it. The old boundaries are weakening." She nodded quietly, and with them, perhaps, the lines between our world and the Muggle one. They fell into silence. The wind carried the faint scent of lilac from the gardens below. Later that day, Harry visited Ollivander's, now reopened and quiet as ever. Dust motes swirled in the sunlight, settling over shelves of wands that glimmered faintly in their boxes. An apprentice greeted him, a young girl with chestnut hair and bright, eager eyes. "Mr. Pot, my master left something for you." She led him to the counter where a small box rested, plain save for a single carved rune on its lid. The symbol of balance. Inside lay a wand core, unlike any Harry had ever seen, a thin strand of silver and gold twined together, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The girl smiled. "He said it belonged to you, that it was the last he ever made." Harry touched it lightly and a warmth spread through his fingertips. Calm, steady, patient. "When did he make this?" he asked softly. The girl's smile dimmed. "Before he vanished. Some say he's part of the wind now, whispering to every wand that listens." Harry nodded, slowly closing the box. "That sounds like him." He left the shop in silence. Diagon Alley was alive with spring colors. Banners fluttering, owls swooping, children laughing as they chased enchanted bubbles down the street. Yet even here, among joy and normalcy, Harry could sense it. The faint hum beneath the cobblestones, the slow rhythm that pulsed beneath all things. The heart still lived, deep below, breathing quietly. That evening he met Hermione and Ron at the Three Broomsticks in Hogsmeade. The inn was lively, filled with warmth and chatter. Butterbeer steamed in their mugs, and the fire crackled merrily. Ron leaned back with a sigh. "So that's it then? The air's gone, the heart's asleep, and we can finally relax for once?" Hermione gave him a look. "Magic doesn't rest, Ron. You know that. But perhaps it's healing. Let it heal quietly," Ron muttered, taking a long drink. "I'm tired of saving the world before dessert." Harry smiled faintly, though his eyes remained distant. "You might get your wish. For now, at least." Hermione reached into her satchel and drew out a rolled parchment. "Kingsley asked me to look into something else. Old records from the Department of Mysteries. The earliest mention of the heart wasn't from the wand makers. It predates them. By centuries." "Predates wand makers? That'd be before organized magic itself." "Exactly," Hermione said. "There are hints of an ancient order. The First Circle, they called themselves, guardians of the world's breath, charged with keeping the heart in balance. When they vanished, wand lore emerged in their place." Harry frowned. "You think the heart was guarded once?" "I think it still is," she said quietly. "Through us. Through anyone who understands that magic isn't power, it's life." They sat in silence for a while, the thought sinking deep. Outside, the wind howled softly over the rooftops, carrying the scent of rain and distant sea. When they finally left the inn, night had fallen. The stars shimmered above, reflected faintly in puddles along the cobblestones. Hermione turned toward the castle in the distance, its windows glowing like lanterns. "It feels different now," she murmured, "as if Hogwarts itself is breathing easier." Harry nodded. "Maybe it remembers what we forgot, that even the greatest magic comes from balance." They parted ways at the fork in the road. Ron headed back toward the burrow, muttering cheerfully about supper. Hermione lingered a moment longer. "Harry," she said softly, "do you ever wonder if Ollivander's still watching us?" He smiled. "Every time I cast a spell." Then she was gone, her figure vanishing into the mist. Harry walked alone through the sleeping village. As he reached the edge of the forest, he stopped. The The trees whispered faintly in the wind. Not words, but a rhythm he recognized. The pulse of the heart, slow and steady, in harmony with the night. He closed his eyes, feeling it resonate through him. Through the soil, the air, the stars. And he understood then what Ollivander had meant, that magic was not something to be tamed, but something to be heard. Above him, the moon broke through the clouds. Hogwarts shone in the distance, proud and ancient, its towers reaching toward the heavens like the fingers of a sleeping giant. The world was healing. The scars left by chaos were closing, but the memory would remain. As it should. For in every age there are those who wake the sleeping power and those who remind it to rest. Harry turned back toward the castle, his steps steady, his heart calm. The wand at his side was silent now, its silver veins dark, but he could feel its quiet trust, the echo of all he had fought to protect. And somewhere far beneath, deep within the earth where light and darkness met, the heart of magic dreamed. Its pulse was even once more, its whisper gentle as breath. Balance restored, for now. But even as it slept, faint ripples spread outward through the roots of the mountains, across the seas, into the forgotten corners of the world. In distant lands, old wards trembled, ancient runes stirred, and unseen eyes opened for the first time in centuries. For magic, like life, is never truly still. It waits, it listens, and it remembers those who dare to touch its depths. And so the world turned, quiet and bright, unaware of what dreams might yet rise from the places where the heart once beat. Spring ripened into early summer, and the world seemed, at last, to breathe in peace. The dark storms that had gathered over Britain dispersed, leaving skies of gentle blue and fields that glittered with dew each morning. Yet for all the calm that had returned, the magical world could not shake a sense of being watched, not by danger, but by something ancient and unseen, something that moved beneath the surface of things. At Hogwarts, classes continued as always. Laughter echoed in the courtyards. Owls soared in flocks across the lake. The smell of roasted pheasant and treacle tart filled the great hall. And yet even here the subtle tremor spells had begun to hum differently again. Lighter now, almost as if whispering. Harry noticed it most keenly in the early mornings, when the mist still clung to the grounds. He often walked along the edge of the forbidden forest, where the trees grew ancient and thick. The air there carried an old kind of magic, the quiet power that came before words or wands. One such morning, as dawn painted the lake in rose and gold, he stopped by a fallen oak. The wand Ollivander had made for him hung quietly at his side, but as he knelt, the wand quivered in its holster. A faint vibration stirred in the soil. He touched the earth and felt it, a rhythm soft and steady, beating beneath the roots. The heart still lived, and it was dreaming. He wasn't surprised when Hermione found him there a few minutes later. She had a way of appearing when the world itself began to whisper. "I thought you'd be here," she said, joining him by the fallen tree. He glanced up. "You feel it too?" "Yes," she said quietly. "It's stronger today, almost like it's listening." "Listening to what?" She gave him a look, thoughtful, uncertain. "Us." They stood in silence, letting the breeze move through the branches. Somewhere far off, a centaur's horn echoed through the forest, deep, mournful, and old. Back at the castle, they found Ron waiting in the great hall, a half-eaten muffin in his hand and a newspaper spread before him. "You've got to see this," he said, sliding the paper toward them. The headline read, "Magical Disturbances in the Highlands. Ancient stones glow blue at midnight." Hermione frowned, scanning the article. Standing stones near Inverness. Villagers saw them light up last night. No Muggle explanation. Ron grinned weakly. Maybe we've got another air situation brewing. Harry's expression darkened. No, not another heir. Something older. He folded the paper slowly, the memory of Ollivander's words echoing in his mind. That evening, under a sky streaked with violet, they apparated north. The highlands were vast and empty, the land rolling and wild. The air was thick with the scent of heather and wet stone. They found the stones easily. A great ring of monoliths rising from the moor, each carved with runes that shimmered faintly in the twilight. The stones hummed, resonating in harmony with the earth below. Hermione traced a rune with her finger, her brow furrowed. These markings, they're older than Wandlore. They might even predate the first circle. Ron kicked at a patch of moss. And what's the first circle again? The order that guarded the heart before the wand makers, she murmured. The ones who first learned to speak with magic, not control it. A low sound broke the stillness, not wind, not thunder. It came from beneath their feet. The stones pulsed once, twice, then flared with light. The runes blazed blue, and a voice, faint but clear, filled the air. The balance trembles. The circle must awaken. The wind rose, whirling dust around them. Harry raised his wand. Who speaks? The light swirled faster, coalescing into a figure, tall, robed, and indistinct, its features lost to the glow. Its voice was neither male nor female, but something in between. A tone of deep, ancient calm. The heart is no longer bound by the old ways. Its pulse stirs in every living thing. The time of guardians returns. Hermione's eyes widened. You mean the circle still exists? It sleeps, the figure said, but not for long. The wand maker's sacrifice awoke the old paths. The threads that weave all magic together have begun to unravel. New guardians must rise to mend them, or all shall fade. The figure turned its faceless head toward Harry. You carry the Maker's echo. His gift still binds you to the heart. Seek the places where the ley lines meet the sky. There you will find the first path. Before any of them could speak again, the runes dimmed, the stones fell silent, and the night returned. Ron broke the silence first. Well, that wasn't creepy at all. Hermione's mind was already racing. Ley lines meet in the sky. That could mean mountaintops, or the old wizarding observatories. Harry slipped his wand back into his cloak. Then we start there. Over the next days, their search led them across Scotland, through windswept valleys and forgotten ruins, through caves that glowed with faint blue light. Each place pulsed faintly with the same rhythm, the same quiet heartbeat. The world itself seemed alive, watching them as they walked. One night they camped by the cliffs of Glencoe, where the stars hung low and bright. Hermione sat near the fire, tracing constellations with her wand tip. Do you ever think, she said softly, that maybe the heart isn't a thing at all? Maybe it's a will, a memory of everything that's ever lived, trying to keep the world in balance. Harry stared into the flames. Then why choose us? Because we listened, she said simply. Ron yawned. Or because we're cursed with bad luck. Harry smiled faintly, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He remembered the warmth of Ollivander's shop, the smell of cedar and ash, the sound of that old, gentle voice. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. Perhaps it was never the wand that chose, but the heart itself, whispering through the wood. The next morning, as the sun climbed over the peaks, the earth trembled softly beneath their feet. From the ridge above, a faint glow shimmered, not the cold blue of danger, but a pale gold, warm and steady. They climbed toward it. At the summit, half buried in stone, stood a circle of carved pillars surrounding a single stone altar. On it lay a wand, old, weathered, its handle cracked with age, but the wood pulsed faintly with light, alive. Hermione's breath caught. This can't be. The wand hummed at his presence, a low note that resonated in his chest. He touched it gently, and the world around them seemed to vanish. In that instant, he stood, not on the mountain, but in a vast expanse of light and shadow, where rivers of magic flowed through the air like threads. Voices whispered all around him, countless and ancient. "You have heard the call," they said. "The circle stirs once more, but balance must be earned. For every guardian born, another must fade." The light dimmed. Harry saw far below the outline of the world, the forests, the rivers, the cities, all glowing faintly with the pulse of the heart. Then, just as suddenly, he was back on the mountaintop. Hermione's hand was on his arm. "Harry, what happened?" He looked down at the wand. "It showed me the heart everywhere. It's not sleeping anymore, it's awake." Hermione's voice was soft. "Then this isn't the end of the story." "No," Harry said, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. "It's the beginning of another." The wind rose again, carrying with it the faint sound of voices, not threatening but calling, like the whisper of an ancient song carried across time. And somewhere far below, deep in the veins of the earth, the heart of magic pulsed once more. Not in warning, not in anger, but in hope. Its guardians had heard. The dawn broke over the Scottish Highlands with a pale, uncertain light. Mist clung to the mountains like old breath, drifting through the valleys in ribbons of silver. The air smelled of rain and stone, ancient, watchful, alive. For the first time since the heart of magic had stirred, the world felt as though it was waiting. Harry, Hermione, and Ron stood at the edge of the ridge where the golden light had led them the night before. The old wand, the one they had found half buried in stone, now rested in Harry's hands. Its wood felt older than time itself, humming faintly. Hermione studied it with a mixture of awe and dread. "This isn't a wand made by any human hand," she said softly. "It's a conduit, a bridge between magic and the world itself. Whoever wielded it must have been one of the first circle." Ron eyed it warily. "And let me guess, whoever wields it now gets to be their replacement?" Harry turned to the wand in his fingers, the light gleaming faintly along its length. "It's not about power," he murmured. "It's about listening. That's what Ollivander always said. A wand listens." Hermione's gaze darkened. "Then the question is, to what?" They descended from the ridge, following the faint pull that thrummed beneath the ground. It led them through the high glens where the ruins of ancient stone circles dotted the hillsides, forgotten places that once marked the paths of the ley lines. At each one, the same faint light glimmered in the stones, blue and gold entwined. Days passed in quiet travel. They camped beside lochs that shimmered under moonlight and crossed moors where even the owls dared not cry. Yet wherever they went, the air carried a subtle vibration, like the beating of a heart hidden beneath the soil. The land was awakening, One night, as they made camp beneath a crumbling arch carved with runes, Hermione sat with her notes spread out before her, parchment scattered across the grass. "The old texts call it the convergence," she said, "a time when the ley lines align perfectly and the heart's power reaches every corner of the world." Ron was stirring the fire. "And what happens when they align? Do we all get blasted to bits?" Hermione frowned. "If the balance is maintained, nothing. But if the lines are disturbed, if they're pulled or twisted, it could unravel magic itself." Harry stared into the flames. "And the first circle? They kept it in balance before?" "Yes," she said, "but some say they gave up their human forms and became part of the heart itself." Ron looked up. "You mean they're still out there? Just, what, floating around as ghosts?" "Not ghosts," Hermione whispered. "Guardians." The fire crackled softly between them. Harry glanced down at the wand in his hand. Its faint glow pulsed with their words, as if it too were listening. They rose before dawn and continued north. As they traveled, the signs grew stronger. Storms that gathered and dispersed without rain, trees that whispered in strange tongues, rivers that flowed backward for minutes at a time. Every pulse of magic seemed to guide them toward a single place, a valley carved deep between mountains of black rock. When they reached it, the air grew still. The valley floor was smooth as glass, untouched by life or time. At its center stood a single obelisk of white stone, its surface veined with gold light. Hermione's breath caught. This is it, the heart of the ley lines. Harry stepped closer, the wand in his hand thrumming so powerfully that his arm ached. As he touched the obelisk, light rippled outward across the valley, racing through the stone like veins of fire. The earth trembled. Then came a voice, deep and vast, echoing through their bones. "The circle returns." The ground before the obelisk split open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. Ron took a step back. "I've seen enough cursed staircases for a lifetime." But Harry was already moving forward. "We've come this far," he said. "We finish it." They descended. The air grew colder with every step, heavy with the scent of old magic. The stairs ended in a vast chamber, circular, with walls carved in runes that shimmered faintly. In the center, 6 pillars stood arranged in a ring, each one pulsing with its own color of light: blue, green, silver, gold, crimson, and white. Hermione's eyes widened. The 6 seats of the circle. The chamber began to hum. From their tops, light poured into the air, weaving together into a great sigil that hovered above the floor. The moment Harry stepped into the circle, the sigil flared, and 6 ghostly figures appeared, robed, tall, and radiant. The first spoke, its voice like the rustle of leaves. "Long have we slept, bound by the silence of balance." The second's tone was soft as water. "The heart stirs once more, and so must its guardians." Hermione bowed slightly, awe in her eyes. "You're the first circle." The tallest of them inclined its head. "We were, and now we are memory." Harry took a breath. "You said the world's balance is failing. How can we fix it?" The 6th figure stepped forward, its form flickering faintly. When the heart awoke, its power was scattered, bound to mortal vessels. The wand makers, the healers, the scholars, the seers, each carries a spark of it. To restore harmony, those sparks must unite once more. Ron frowned. "So what? We gather everyone up for a nice campfire and hope the world doesn't explode?" The figure did not smile. "If the sparks are misused, the weave of magic will fray beyond repair. You must find the bearers. Bring them here before the next convergence. If you fail, the heart will shatter, and magic with it. The light began to fade. The figures dissolved back into the pillars, their voices echoing as they vanished. Guardians rise when the world remembers. Seek the 5. Find the circle reborn. Silence fell. Hermione turned to Harry. 5 others. That's what they meant. There are 5 people out there who carry pieces of the heart. Ron exhaled slowly. 5 people who probably have no idea what they're holding. Harry stared at the fading light of the pillars. Then we find them, before someone else does. When they emerged from the valley, dawn was breaking once more. The first rays of sunlight touched the mountains, turning them gold. Far off, thunder rolled. As they began their journey back toward the castle, Hermione spoke softly, more to herself than to the others. Guardians rise when the world remembers. Harry glanced at her. Then let's make sure it remembers the right ones. The wind rose, carrying the faint hum of magic across the highlands, a sound older than words, steady as the pulse of the earth. Somewhere in that sound, faint and distant, another rhythm joined it. The echo of 5 unseen hearts beginning to stir. The circle had called, and the world had begun to answer. The storm of fate had quieted, but its echo had not yet faded. In the months that followed the awakening of the circle, the wizarding world lived in uneasy calm. Magic flowed stronger than before, but differently. It seemed to have moods now, rhythms that mirrored the pulse of the land. Spells felt heavier on some days and light as air on others, as though the world itself was remembering how to breathe. At Hogwarts, lessons resumed under a sky of constant shifting colors. Some nights, the moon shone blue, and the castle's stones glimmered faintly in reply. Students whispered of strange dreams, of glowing rivers beneath the floorboards, of heartbeats that thudded in the walls. And in the depths of the forbidden forest, creatures that had hidden for centuries began to emerge once more. Harry stood at the edge of the forest one morning staring toward the horizon. The mountains lay silent, veiled in mist. Somewhere out there, 5 souls carried pieces of the heart of magic. He could feel them. Faint tremors in his wand, whispers at the edge of hearing. The circle's charge weighed heavy upon him. Hermione joined him soon after, her cloak brushing the grass. She looked older now, more solemn, as though the heart's secrets had aged her in mere weeks. "The ley lines are changing again," she said. "I traced their movement last night. They're bending north and east, toward the old ruins near Whitby." "Another bearer?" "The energy signature's the same as when the wand reacted to the stones." Ron appeared a moment later carrying a satchel of supplies and looking thoroughly unimpressed. "If this next one turns out to be living in some cursed cave, I'm sleeping outside." Hermione smirked faintly. "You said the same thing in the Highlands." "Yes, and I meant it." They set off by mid-morning, apparating to the wind-swept cliffs of northern England. The sea stretched below them, gray and endless, pounding against the rocks. The ruins of an ancient abbey stood above the cliffs, broken arches and columns, blackened by centuries of rain. Hermione raised her wand and muttered a detection spell. A faint shimmer spread across the stones, outlining symbols carved so deep they were nearly invisible. "The runes of the circle," she said softly. "They've been here all along." Harry approached the largest archway. The moment he stepped through, a gust of wind swept across the ruins and the air grew cold. From the shadows of the abbey emerged a figure, cloaked, slight, and hooded. "Stay back," Ron warned, drawing his wand. The stranger lifted a pale hand. "I mean no harm." Her voice was young, no more than 20, yet it carried an odd echo, the tone of someone who had lived many lifetimes. "You've come for me." Harry frowned. "Who are you?" The girl lowered her hood. Her hair was white as frost, though her eyes burned a vivid green. "My name is Alara. I dreamed of your faces long before you arrived. The heart told me you would come." Hermione stepped forward cautiously. "You're one of them. One of the 5. Alara nodded. "The spark awoke in me the night the sky turned blue above Hogwarts. Since then, I felt the world whisper. I hear the rivers beneath the ground, the magic that sleeps in the roots of trees." Ron exchanged a look with Harry. "Brilliant. She's a talking ley line." Alara smiled faintly, unfazed. "Call it what you wish." "It listens too." As if in answer, the wind shifted. The sea below grew violent, waves smashing against the cliffs. From the mist beyond the abbey came a sound. Not human, not beast. A grinding, echoing hum that made the air tremble. Hermione's eyes widened. It's a resonance creature, magic given shape, the heart's power leaking into the world. The mist thickened, forming into a shape, a creature vast and shimmering, its body made of blue light. It had no face, no form, only a twisting coil of energy that shrieked as it moved. Ron raised his wand. "I thought magic was supposed to help us." "Magic helps balance," Hermione shouted. "It defends the heart and tests those who touch it." The creature lunged. Harry shouted a shield charm, the barrier sparking under the impact. The sound was deafening, like the clash of thunder underwater. Alara stepped forward, her palms glowing faintly. "Don't fight it," she said calmly. "Listen." Before any of them could stop her, she walked towards the creature. The light around her brightened until it rivaled the creature's glow. She spoke in a language none of them knew, soft, melodic, ancient. The creature paused. Its form trembled, then began to dissolve, its edges breaking apart like mist in sunlight. The air stilled. When it was gone, only Alara remained, kneeling, her breath shallow. The ground around her shimmered with faint golden light. Harry knelt beside her. "What did you do?" "I reminded it what it was," she whispered. "It wasn't meant to destroy, it was meant to protect." Hermione helped her to her feet. "You really are connected to the heart." Alara smiled weakly. "Then we have little time. The others are waking. Not all will understand their purpose." They returned to Hogwarts with Alara that night. McGonagall welcomed her quietly, though her eyes betrayed unease. "You bring omens with you, Potter," she said softly. "Be careful what you awaken." In the days that followed, Harry could feel it too. The castle's magic shifted again. Staircases moved slower, portraits whispered longer. Even the Sorting Hat muttered restlessly in the headmistress's office. One evening, as they gathered in the library to study the ancient texts of the Circle, Alara looked up suddenly. "There are others," she murmured. "One in the east, a scholar who reads the language of stone, another in the south, a healer who dreams in light." Hermione began to write. "And the others?" Alara's expression darkened. "The fourth walks in shadow. He feels the same call we do, but his heart beats against the world. He will not come willingly." Harry looked at her sharply. "You've seen him?" She nodded. "Only in dreams. His eyes burn like the storm. The heart speaks to him, but he listens to something else. Silence fell. The firelight flickered across the stone walls, painting their faces in shades of gold and shadow. Ron broke the quiet first. So, let me get this straight. We've got to find 4 more people. One of them's probably evil, and if we don't, the world falls apart? Hermione closed her book with a sigh. That's about right. Ron groaned. Brilliant. Just another Tuesday. But beneath his humor, they all felt the same unease, the pulse of something vast, moving just out of sight. That night, as Harry stood at the window overlooking the darkened grounds, the wand Ollivander had given him stirred once more. A faint whisper brushed his thoughts. Not words, but a feeling. Urgency. Warning. In the distance, thunder rolled over the mountains. The world was stirring again, and the heart of magic, though balanced, was no longer content to sleep. Somewhere in the deep corners of the earth, another bearer woke, one whose power bent not toward harm. And so, as dawn broke over the castle's towers, the new age began, the age of the circle reborn, when magic would remember itself once more.